Peace Queen. It's Melissa Crawford of thequeencode.com, and the message today is part 9 in the series entitled Revelations, Unveiling the Great Mystery of the Divine Feminine. So if you haven't seen the last 8 videos, I do encourage you in your free time to catch up with those as well. But what we've been talking about here in this series is not only what it means to be a woman, but who and what we become when we are aligned with our inner truth. How we show up in the world when we reclaim our divinity. And what's been really different about this series in comparison to a lot of the other ones that I've done, because all of my series are about feminine power, right? But what's really different about this series is that I'm really going back in time. I'm really going deep into our story, our herstory, to show you who we've been, because there was a time thousands of years ago, this great divine feminine era, where as women we reigned supreme. We were very honored and respected, very different from how things are now, right? And the time has come for us to reclaim our thrones and get back to that status, but this time go even further. And so, like I said, the time is here, the season is here, Queen season is here. And this series is really to help you get equipped and help you get in alignment with the woman that you're already created to be. We just have to remember, right? So here we are in part 9. In part 9, I want to talk about nurturing the divine feminine. Nurturing the divine feminine. I get so many emails from queens all around the world that, want to know how to be more feminine. How can they be more feminine? Well, here's the thing. It's universal law that what you feed will grow or get stronger, and what you do not feed or starve will become weaker or it'll die. And so how do you become more feminine? Well, there's several different ways, but to get to the core of it, it's really in feeding the feminine. It's in nurturing the divine feminine spirit. And so how do you do that? Well, there are many different ways, and you actually, I'm talking about them all the time actually in my videos. Things like meditation, things like rest, the power to be versus do. Doing is very important. It's actually a part of the equation of manifestation, but in this society, we know how to do. But what about the power to be? That is the feminine, okay? So I talk about different ways to feed the feminine all the time, but in this video, I really want to go deeper in one of the key core ways that you can feed the feminine, and that is through nature. When you look out at nature right now, I'm looking out at these big, beautiful trees in my backyard. When you look out in nature, you're actually seeing the divine feminine at work. When you look in nature, you see abundance, you see grace, you see peace, you see flow. You see this beautiful cycle of receiving and expressing. And that is the divine feminine. That is feminine manifestation, receiving and expressing. And as women in the past, we've always had this wonderful, powerful relationship with Mother Nature. Thousands of years ago, on that great divine feminine era, we had a wonderful relationship with Mother Nature. In the last several thousand years, 2,000 years or so, we really lost that connection. One of the reasons being is that it was really seen as evil when we would go out into nature and we would, know the herbs and know the different ways of healing ourselves and, form our healing circles, women holding hands out in nature. It got to the point where that was seen as witchcraft. And all we were doing was really coming together to heal ourselves in a collective feminine way. Now, don't get me wrong, here's my little disclaimer here. I'm sure that there were some people back there who understood the power that I'm talking about right now and used it for evil. I'm sure. But what I'm talking about here, the original intention was never to be evil. And so we've gotten out of this powerful connection we have with Mother Nature. And nature has always been a place where, not just women, men too, but especially since we have that internal connection, nature's always been a place where we could go to not only hear the wisdom of Mother Nature, but also hear our own inner wisdom. And that is so lost today. And so in nurturing the feminine spirit, feeding the feminine spirit, it's time to reconnect to Mother Nature. It's time to really incorporate in our lives on a regular basis. Just sitting out and observing nature, not necessarily having to do anything. Maybe you do journal, maybe you don't. Maybe you read a book, maybe you don't. But just having that time to take in, to remind you that there's a natural flow to life. And all we simply have to do is align with our own purpose, and great things can happen in a magnificent way. That's what nature reminds us. Like Jesus talked about with the lily of the valley, you don't see, trees and all of these things worrying about, what's going to happen to them, and, where the next meal is going to come from, and how am I going to do this, and how am I going to do that? Because when you are in divine flow, when you are in alignment, it's not that these things are just brought to you and you have to do nothing. No, it's just that you operate at a higher level of abundance. You operate at a higher level of peace. You begin to understand by looking in nature that lack is a lie. You begin to understand by looking in nature that regeneration is our natural state. And if regeneration is our natural state, then why are we living with things like illness, with things like poverty, all of these different forms of lack? And so you get all of this and even more just by observing nature. And, it's best to observe nature, when it hasn't been manipulated by human beings, right? But if that's all you have is, maybe a nice park where the trees are manicured, that's fine. Because the point is just to be out in the open, fresh air. The point is to reconnect to something that's already within you, but that you can obviously see being expressed in the world, okay? That's a great way of nurturing the feminine spirit. So that's my message for you today. In the meantime, I do have a wonderful gift for you. If you go over to my website at thequeencode.com, you can actually download a copy of Reign as Queen in 2014. It's an audio I did at the beginning of the year, and it's still relevant right now. We're going into the last quarter, so it's even more relevant. You can actually experience miracles in the last quarter. It's possible. So all you have to do to get that free audio is go to my website at www.thequeencode.com, and I'll be coming back to you next week with part 10 of the Revelation series. Stay tuned.